Hi, I'm so happy you've joined me for another video looking at reading a book with me. So let's get to it. The Tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher by Beatrix Potter. For Stephanie from Cousin B. Once upon a time, there was a frog called Mr. Jeremy Fisher. He lived in a little damp house amongst the buttercups at the edge of a pond. The water was all slippy sloppy in the larder and in the back passage. A larder is a room or a large cupboard that's used for storing food. The word damp means slightly wet. But Mr. Jeremy liked getting his feet wet. Nobody ever scolded him, and he never caught a cold. To scold someone is to tell them off in an angry manner. He was quite pleased when he looked out and saw large drops of rain splashing in the pond. I will get some worms and go fishing and catch a dish of minnows for my dinner, said Mr. Jeremy Fisher. If I catch more than 5 fish, I'll invite my friends Mr. Alderman Tomley, Tortoise, and Sir Isaac Newton. The alderman, however, eats salad. An alderman is a member of a city council. Mr. Jeremy put on a mackintosh and a pair of shiny goloshes. He took his rod and basket and set off with enormous hops to the place where he kept his boat. A golosh is a waterproof overshoe, and a mackintosh is a waterproof coat. The boat was round and green and very like the other lily leaves. It was tied to a water plant in the middle of the pond. Mr. Jeremy took a reed pole and pushed the boat out into open water. I know a good place for minnows, said Mr. Jeremy Fisher. Mr. Jeremy stuck his pole into the mud and fastened the boat to it. Then he settled himself cross-legged and arranged his fishing tackle. He had the dearest little red float. His rod was a tough stalk of grass. His line was a fine long white horsehair, and he tied a little wriggling worm at the end. To wriggle is to twist and turn in quick movements. So that's a wriggle. And that's what worms do, it's how they move. The rain trickled down his back, and for nearly an hour he stared at the float. This is getting tiresome. I think I should like some lunch, said Mr. Jeremy Fisher. To feel tiresome is feeling tired or bored or annoyed. He punted back again amongst the water plants and took some lunch out of his basket. I will eat a butterfly sandwich and wait till the shower is over, said Mr. Jeremy Fisher. A great big water beetle came up underneath the lily leaf and tweaked the toe of one of his galoshes. Mr. Jeremy crossed his legs up shorter, out of reach, and went on eating his sandwich. Once or twice something moved about with a rustle and a splash amongst the rushes at the side of the pond. I trust that is not a rat, said Mr. Jeremy Fisher. I think I'd better get away from here. Mr. Jeremy shoved the boat out again, a little way, and dropped in the bait. There was a bite almost directly. The float gave a tremendous bobbit. And bait is food that's placed on a hook or in a net for fishing to entice the fish to come as prey. And when we were talking about the worm earlier, usually in fishing we use worm as prey for the bait. A minnow, a minnow! I have him by the nose, cried Mr. Jeremy Fisher, jerking up his rod. But what a horrible surprise! Instead of a smooth, fat minnow, Mr. Jeremy landed little Jack Sharp, the stickleback, covered with spines. And the spine, well, we have the spine in our back, but a spine also can be used to describe anything pointed or hard, which is defensive for animals. So hedgehogs, they have those pricks, and we can call them spines as well. So there's a kind of fish which is prickly. The stickleback floundered about the boat, pricking and snapping until he was quite out of breath. Then he jumped back into the water. And you can see his spines in the picture, those sharp, pointy bits as well. To flounder is to struggle or to stagger clumsily around in mud or in water. So you can see fish floundering when they're out of the water because they're trying to make sure that they can breathe. And a shoal of other little fishers put their heads out and laughed at Mr. Jeremy Fisher. A shoal is a large number of fish which swim together, and we can also use the term a school as well, a school of fish, not where we go to study. And while Mr. Jeremy sat disconsolately on the edge of his boat, sucking his sore fingers and peering down into the water, a much worse thing happened. A really frightful thing it would have been if Mr. Jeremy had not been wearing a mackintosh. Disconsolately means hopelessly, or miserably, or sadly. A great big, enormous trout came up, kerplop, plop, plop, with a splash, and it seized Mr. Jeremy with a snap. Ow, ow, ow! And then it turned and dived down to the bottom of the pond. Oh no, and I think we can see the little leg of Mr. Jeremy as well in the mouth of the trout. But the trout was so displeased with the taste of the mackintosh that in less than half a minute it spat him out again, and the only thing it swallowed was Mr. Jeremy's galoshes. And do you know how many seconds a half a minute is? Well, 1 minute is 60 seconds, so half a minute is 30. Mr. Jeremy bounced up to the surface of the water like a cork in the bubbles out of a soda water bottle, and he swam with all his might to the edge of the pond. He scrambled out on the first bank he came to, and he hopped home across the meadow with his mackintosh all in tatters. And to be all in tatters means all in pieces, like it doesn't look new anymore. What a mercy that was not a pike, said Mr. Jeremy Fisher. I've lost my rod and basket, but it does not much matter, for I'm sure I should never have dared to go fishing again. He put some sticking plaster on his fingers, and his friends both came to dinner. He could not offer them fish, but he had something else in his larder. Sir Isaac Newton wore his black and gold waistcoat, and Mr. Alderman Tomley Tortoise brought a salad with him in a string bag. And instead of a nice dish of minnows, they had a roasted grasshopper with a ladybird sauce, which frogs consider a beautiful treat, but I think it must have been nasty.